We are not asking questions. Everyone just follows the status quo. Without truth, there is no love. Hi there, welcome on here. If this is your very first time here, you're welcome. I hope you stay inspired. I hope you stay connected. So, I think I should introduce myself. So yes, I am Gloria Woleng. I'm a Christian and my faith influences other spheres I'm privileged to occupy. I'm a practicing medical doctor with interest in holistic health. I'm also a fashion enthusiast and personal development enthusiast. I'm also a blogger and, of course, a YouTuber. So, yeah, at the time of recording this video, I actually do not have a perfect title. But I guess as we continue, then we'll figure what the title is supposed to be about. I'm sure you're familiar with lines like, "This is how it has always been. This was what we meant." I'm sure you must have heard this a number of times. And everyone just follows the status quo. We are not asking questions. We are actually afraid to choose or decide otherwise. And that's because on the basis of cultural norms, we usually assume that if everyone is thinking or doing this, it must be normal or correct. And whenever the truth stares at our conscience, we're actually afraid to speak against or challenge the ills. Because, deeper than superficial, the dysfunction favors us in a way. We know that, okay, if we are trying to nip in the bud corruption in an organization, someone is also going to look us on the face and say, "Hey, look, what about the first document you signed in here with?" Or someone is going to look you up and tell you, "Come on, excuse me, you ain't different from us because you sign in earlier than you come in every morning." So we need to understand that if we want even the most minute change in this dysfunctional society of ours, it must start from us. It must start from you. It must start from me. It will start from giving up part of ourselves. And giving up part of ourselves, it entails giving up personality traits, well-established and learned patterns of behavior, ideologies, and even old lifestyles. And I know that's not quite easy. It actually can be excruciating. Yet, these forms of giving up, they are required if one is to travel the journey of life, towards increasing spirituality, maturity, and societal progress. As with any giving up, the biggest fear is that, one will be left totally empty. We have this thought of losing out on benefits, the possibilities of losing out on connections, perhaps losing out on one's job even. One thing is liberating, and it is that any change from one way to another represents a death of the old way, and that also makes room for the birth of a new one. These stages of dying are actually quite important to the process of unlearning and new learning. I know you would also agree that systems inherently, resist change. They resist healing. They resist progress. And the truth of the matter is that most organizations, despite their dysfunction and cost ineffectiveness, would rather choose to remain dysfunctional than to grow towards greater civility and consciousness. Why is that so? They don't want to do the work of reflection or bending towards civility. And civility doesn't come naturally. It actually takes consciousness and action to achieve. Incivility comes more naturally to us as human beings, and because of laziness, it's actually easier to be incivil than civil. While incivility is easier, the creation of a relatively civil organization or culture is in the long run safer, healthier, and more cost effective. It is also the route to actually creating something that is more healing and alive. I know you might want to throw your hands up in defeat and say, oh, since the world is already evil, nothing and no one can make a difference. But if we are to look at our society realistically, we will recognize the influence of both good and evil forces. If we see the world inherently as evil, this will stop us from believing it can improve. But if we see the forces for good in the world have an equal footing with the forces for evil, there is a great hope for the future. We must groom our ability to maintain this balanced perspective that the world is not all bad, neither is it all beautiful. If you actually believe the truth of the scriptures, which says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven," that means we understand that we can create a heavenly culture in the now. From this balanced perspective, there is actually room for us to be optimistic and not to entertain despair. A desperate vision of the society can become more fueled by media influences. Through their focus on evil, the media perpetuates, an unbalanced view of reality. We hear more often about bad marriages and we rarely hear about great marriages, which actually, following statistics, it's much more. The media's intentional and general exclusion of good news leaves the public with the impression that, oh, evil truly rules the day. Keeping a balanced perspective will be essential to changing systems, just as it is necessary, to develop one's consciousness to what is right or wrong per time. In some ways, the world actually is changing for the better. Killing of twins used to be a norm in Nigeria until it was aborted by someone who challenged status quo. Some 400 years ago, children weren't generally considered worthy of attention and respect as individuals with their own needs and rights in our society. But child protection and efforts have improved tremendously in our century. We now have established hotlines for reporting cases of child exploitations. Investigations are routine and sometimes even very extensive in cases of suspected child abuse and neglect. So there is no denying that there is some improvement in the world, and on that basis we know that there is capacity to do better. We each can actually take a stand on the struggle against all kinds of evil in our world. The battle against evil must actually begin at home. We must deal with ourselves, our family first, and work to create healthier communication and interactions. It's important for us to think publicly and act privately. It's important to think collectively but act individually. It's important to think globally but to act locally. Never be afraid to raise and use your voice for honesty, truth, and compassion against injustice, lying, and greed. Without truth, there is no love. Truth telling is an act of love. And the foundation to fixing dysfunctional society is truth, wrapped up in love. And that I'm encouraging you to stand for. If this has inspired you or blessed you in any way, please do not hesitate to share this video with some others that you think should also see this video. Please don't also forget to click on the like and subscribe button. If you have any comments, reservations, ideas about this, please do not hesitate to drop in the comment section. I actually will be reading. Thank you. See you in the next video.